Okay. Okay, class. Good morning. Today we have your tests only. So this is going to be Q&A. Let me give you some words on your 120. You have Dan Moreno, City of Dallas, Southwest Patrol Division, Hortense, Officer Kevin Watts, Officer Watts, Officer Charles Raines. Do you like seeing yourself?
Yeah, Mom.
I
Let me fix my hair.
I know sometimes when I make it big, I'm like, maybe I shouldn't, but I think it's better for them to see it that way. Yeah, but it's nice having your screen up there, right?
How do you make it one something else and one the other?
You need to, he showed me how to do it. I wrote it down somewhere.
Okay.
It's right here. Windows P, arrows, extend, enter.
Okay.
It didn't work when you tried it yesterday, so.
When he tried it?
Is it Hugo?
Oh.
Yeah, he's the one that changed it around. He set it up and they took our projector.
I noticed that.
Yeah, and it's what we needed. I know, it's nice. Okay, you all, so this is starting at the very beginning, and this is 120 number 1 for 5 minutes, you all. Q&A. State your name for this jury.
Dan Moreno.
And for the record, would you spell your last name?
Moreno.
And you are a police officer for the City of Dallas?
Yes, sir, I am.
What division are you assigned to?
Southwest Patrol Division.
What are your duties with the Southwest Patrol Division?
I am a patrol officer and field training officer.
Were you working as a patrol officer on the day of October 3rd, 1991?
Yes. At the time, I didn't have a rookie.
Turning your attention to October the 3rd, 1991, were you on duty at approximately 12 noon?
Yes, sir, I was.
And roughly after 12 noon, did you respond to a shooting call?
Yes, I did.
And what did you do when you arrived at the scene, officer?
Immediately when I came down the road of 1600 Hortense, I shut down my emergency lights and siren, and I observed my cover element, Officer Kevin Watts, already on the scene, and he was waving his arm at me so I could go and stop my vehicle, since the complainant, who was shot at the time, was laying in the middle of the street.
And what happened after that?
I exited my patrol vehicle and I ran up to the complainant, and Officer Watts and myself were trying to determine what had happened from him.
And did the complainant tell you what had happened?
He said he was shot by someone from a yellow house up the street.
Okay. Did he point out the house to you?
At the time, I don't remember him being able to point out to me. He was in such great pain, and I asked him to try and turn over because he was on his stomach, and I tried to get him to turn over, and I could see the extent of his injuries.
Was there quite a bit of blood, officer?
Yes, sir, quite a bit.
What is the next thing you remember happening after you were asking him to turn over?
At that time, people started to come out of their houses to see what was happening. The witnesses who had originally called us had begun to come out of their house. I got on the police radio and called for an ambulance, or made sure we had one coming.
And how long did it take the ambulance to get there?
An ambulance was dispatched automatically when the call came out. So they were there within about 3 or 4 minutes after we arrived on the scene.
Were you already on the scene, officer, when the victim's sister came out?
Yes, sir, I was.
And did you see her when she came out of her house?
Yes, I did.
After the ambulance arrived, did you do anything further?
After the ambulance arrived, the sister came out and she asked several questions of the complainant. And based on what he told her and the fact that he mentioned a yellow house, I tried to get a cover element, Officer Charles Raines, to come cover us. That way we could go and knock on the door of the yellow house.
Why did you feel that she or you needed a cover element?
Well, at the time, the complainant had stated something about a rifle, and my first instinct was a shot from a yellow house up the street, possibly a sniper incident. And the last thing I wanted to do was to be exposed to any high-powered rifle fire.
Officer, referring to the... And so then you have on your 120 number 2 Q&A, you've got Stanley W. Johnson, Nashville, Tennessee, Marilyn Johnson, and Robinson. And this starts at the very beginning. This is going to be 120 number 2 for 5 minutes, you all. State your full name for the record, please.
Stanley W. Johnson.
Where do you reside, Mr. Johnson?
Nashville, Tennessee.
Are you married, sir?
Yes, I am.
What is your wife's name?
Her name is Marilyn Johnson.
What was her maiden name?
Her maiden name was Robinson.
How long have you been married?
Last September 22nd was our first year anniversary.
Have you ever been married before?
No, this is my only marriage.
Do you have any children?
No, not yet.
How long have you resided in Nashville, Tennessee?
I've lived in Nashville my entire life. However, I've only been at my present address for about the last year.
Where did you live before that, Stanley?
I had previously lived with my parents.
Prior to getting married and finding an apartment to live in with your wife, had you always lived with your mother and father?
Yes, because I was still attending school.
At the time of this accident we're talking about today, were you living in the apartment with your wife, or were you still living with your parents?
At that time, we had just been married for approximately 2 months.
Did the two of you move in with your parents for a while after the accident?
Yes, we did temporarily.
Why did you move in with them?
Because I wasn't making any money. I wasn't able to work.
Was your wife working at the time this incident occurred?
Yes, she worked at a convenience store over by the interstate.
Was that a permanent or a part-time position?
She was a cashier for them, but not on a regular basis.
At the time of this accident, were you going to college?
No, I was out working.
Had you graduated from high school the previous summer?
Yes, I graduated from high school in June of that year.
What kind of employment did you have at the time the accident occurred?
I was working on a construction site. I was just a day laborer on a construction site.
Once you received treatment, did you go back to your construction job after this accident?
No, ma'am. I could not return to work because I couldn't do any heavy lifting.
Were you able to find other employment after the accident?
Not really. Well, I did work some for my father in Nashville.
What does your father do?
He's a beer distributor.
Were you driving trucks for him?
No, I couldn't do that kind of work. I mainly just worked in the office doing some paperwork for him.
Have you ever been convicted of any criminal offense?
No, I have not.
Have you ever been arrested?
No, I have not.
Have you ever received a traffic ticket other than the one you received in this case?
Yes, I've had a few speeding tickets.
Have you ever had any other accidents?
No, ma'am. This is the only accident I've ever been involved in.
Do you remember what day of the week this accident happened?
No, I sure don't.
Do you remember whether it was on a weekday or a weekend?
It was in the afternoon, and I remember running errands for my wife. So it was definitely on the weekend.
Did you have anything to drink that afternoon?
No, ma'am, I didn't.
So you didn't have anything to drink in the previous 24 hours?
Yes, ma'am. I probably had a couple of beers the previous evening.
Could it possibly have been more than just a couple of beers the previous night?
No, it couldn't.
What were the weather conditions that day? Was it raining or? Oh my, okay, I hope I'm not getting sick.
Don't do it.
I know.
Don't do it.
Okay, and then we have on your 100s, you all, Mr. Bates on your 100 number 1, and that's it. So this is going to be 100 number 1 for 5 minutes, Q&A, and it starts in the middle for 5 minutes, you all. Do you still own the car that was involved in this accident?
Yes, but I don't really drive it right now.
Well, has it passed inspection to be able to be driven right now, like a state inspection?
Yes, I can drive it if I want to. It has a current inspection sticker.
So it is able to be driven. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
All right. And do you drive it now or not?
Just very limited, only to keep the battery up and whatever. I've got it in the garage to keep the battery up. I'll drive it every now and then, but not very often because we have another car and I've got an old truck too.
Were you planning on purchasing a new vehicle anyway, and this just prompted it to happen sooner?
Yes, this prompted it. When I was leaving the nursing home that day, my brother-in-law walked with us out to the car, and he was looking at our little car. And he commented on how clean it was. And I said, yes, it was a great little car, and we probably wouldn't ever buy another car.
How long had you owned that car?
Probably about 10 or 11 years, something like that. It was a great car. It never gave us any problems.
Do you know how many miles it had on it at the time of this accident?
No, not really. I don't think it has more than 100,000, but I can't remember exactly.
All right. Now, I think the allegation has been made that my client was driving under the influence of alcohol at the time of the accident. Is that right?
Right.
What evidence do you have that he had been drinking?
Well, there were beer cans, both empty and full ones, on the seat of his truck.
Anything else that made you believe he had been drinking?
That's all the evidence that I have, because I didn't actually confront him. He took off through the woods like an animal. That made him look guilty too.
I understand, but since then, have you come into possession of any documents or anything that indicates that his blood level tested at a certain level and that he was the driver of the vehicle at the time of the accident?
No, because they didn't see him for several days. He ran away through the woods and they couldn't find him for days.
When you say they, who are you referring to?
The authorities, that's what they tell me. They went to his house and couldn't find him for a few days.
Have you heard or have you been told that Mr. Bates reported his vehicle had been stolen?
Yes, I heard that.
Do you have any information about whether that's true or not?
I don't have any way of knowing one way or the other.
Did the police give you any additional information about that, since that was okay? And so we have your second 100 Q&A, Tim Grace's, Linda, Denise, and Grace's. And this is going to be your 100 number 2 Q&A, and it does start in the middle for 5 minutes, you all. Okay, did you have your turn signal on?
Correct, sir.
And you remember that the lights were high up?
They were higher up than the car.
And who informed you it must be a van?
There was a van present. Nobody told me there was a van there.
When you say it was there, what do you mean?
It stopped. He impacted us. We spun around, and there was a van immediately there next to him.
Okay, so you saw at least one vehicle, but you say it's farther back.
Yes.
Did you see two vehicles approaching?
No, I saw only one.
When you made your turn, did any of the two passengers in your car say anything to you?
No. When we turned, as soon as we turned, he was immediately there, and his lights weren't even on bright when he was flipping them at us. They were still dim. They weren't bright.
I need to back you up again. Whose headlights were flickering at you?
Lights were flickering. When I turned and he was right there, they were not on bright.
His high beams weren't on?
No, they were dim.
Just regular lights on?
Correct.
His headlights on, or just his parking lights or whatever?
Like I explained, all I noticed was the van lights. When I turned, all of a sudden, these lights are right here on us.
Tim Grace's vehicle?
Correct.
And you didn't have a green arrow when you made the turn.
No, I had a green light.
Okay. Do you remember how long you sat and waited for the 10 or so vehicles to go by?
I don't know because we kept playing with the radio.
Who was playing with the radio?
Me and Linda.
Changing stations?
Yes, sir. We were changing stations.
Were you two arguing what you ought to listen to?
No, sir.
You were just both of you trying to find something you liked.
Correct.
And were you doing that as you were getting ready to make the left turn?
Yes, sir. There was cars coming.
You think you were distracted by changing the stations on the radio?
No, sir, because I looked up and checked.
Were you and Linda and Denise talking while you were getting ready to make the left turn?
No, sir.
Where did your vehicle and the Grace's vehicle hit each other?
He hit in between my passenger and my back door, the passenger door and the back door, because they had to cut out the middle beam.
He hit pretty much in between the two doors.
In the middle.
Have you a four-door vehicle?
Correct.
Did the front of his vehicle hit the side of your vehicle?
Yes, sir.
And Linda was sitting in the front in the passenger seat?
Yes, sir.
And Denise obviously was in the back?
Yes.
Did you have your seatbelts on?
Correct, sir.
All three of you?
Correct, sir.
And you said Linda had the narcotics that she had. Okay, you all, so that concludes your tests. They were very good. Hopefully you all get one. Remember, we're at the 7th point of the semester, 7th week. So please, you all give it your all, okay? Have a great day.